Hey guys, welcome to Ultimate S&S. So I want to do a little video here and discuss kind of how we came about doing a little homestead. It's one of the common questions I typically get asked via email and things. So what actually inspired me to do this? Looking back when this whole pandemic thing was beginning, I started kind of looking at the way society was kind of heading and was listening to what I call behind the scene cues with our political leaders and things like that as well. And I was seeing a need for, creating a sustainable life here at home. Uh, as many of y'all have experienced, there's situations where, perhaps you're losing your jobs or maybe you're getting ill with sickness and things like that. And it really cuts into your income and you're having less food to provide for your children, or you're having to pull food from other areas to put into feeding your families. So what I decided to do here is I kind of looked at what my long goal plan was, and my first need that I seen that I was going to need in this area was pollinators. So we do have a lot of wasps, we have a lot of hornets and things like that, but I wasn't seeing a lot of honeybees. So I ended up investing in a couple of hives and purchased some bees online, had them delivered to the house, and got my pollinator started, which has been great. We started that back in May of last year, and it really helped the garden and things like that as well. Plus, we had our first honey harvest. We didn't take too much from the boxes, but we did have some honey to get through the holidays and on into the year. And it's a really great source to have something sweet around. But if you're looking at doing quail and chickens, it really helps as far as your chicks go too. So if you ever order your chicks in from the mail, they have this little packet of stuff that you can put in with the water. And what that does is it's basically giving them an energy boost. It says it has vitamins and minerals and stuff. It basically looks like sugar to me. So what I ended up doing is I would take a teaspoon of honey and I would mix it with a quart of water. And just make that warm, spin it around in there, get it stirred up real good, and give that to the chicks that I ended up getting in the mail. And they did really well with it. I mean, I haven't lost a single chick, which is great. We ordered 10, they sent 11. We have now 11 chickens out in our run, and we're going to be adding some little clips in here for everybody. But after I got my bees started, I really wanted to expand into some sort of a meat source and an egg layer. So I had looked at chickens originally, and at the time, I was working a lot of hours in management and things like that as well. And I was like, well, I need something that's not going to be as involved. And so I ended up going with quail. So there are a lot of different type of quail species out there. The species that I chose to go with is the Cortinix quail. It is a Japicano, some sort of breeds that they over in Japan and a lot of the Asian countries and things like that. And they're mixed with all kinds of different breeds. Now, that particular type of quail is not a rooster. It doesn't need roosts. It does not need to have a large area to fly around, because basically they'll shoot straight up. They don't fly very long. And all they really need is a 12-inch headspace inside of a pen. Anything more than that, you're creating a situation where that quail will fly up, and it can break its neck, it can injure its head, and all kinds of bad stuff can happen. So if you have a really small footprint that you're wanting to put some kind of a bird, I would highly recommend the quail. And you're going to get all kinds of different variety in those quail. So I started off, I went on Amazon and ordered a dozen quail eggs. And I didn't know if they would hatch. I figured we'd give it a try. And what I ended up finding out is they all hatched. They were very easy to rear up. There wasn't a whole lot to it. As long as you're providing warmth via a heating pad, is how I started, with a reptile heating pad. And I used a full spectrum light, and I would just brood them right in the shower. And you would move them out when you need to take a shower or whatever. But it made it a little easier, a little more convenient to get them. I have now since expanded that operation. It is now in a shed, have a large brood box with heaters and heat lamps and things like that. And I can rear a lot of quail at one time. But it started with 12 eggs and a little cheap incubator I got for $29 on Amazon. And that's how I got into my quail. So I get a lot of requests locally. We have people drive by and they hear them outside a little bit as they go by, because I live on a pretty rough road. You can't really travel very fast down it. And people are kind of curious what that sound is and stuff. Or a neighbor will see me out collecting eggs and wonder what that bird is. And I've been able to, expand my needs, not just toward food and eggs, but I've been able to sell them live birds. which has really helped not just me, but helped the community as well. So there are a few little houses around here that are now doing quail, which is pretty cool, you know, to be a part of that. So it's a small source of income. Now you can go and you can get state certified where you can start butchering them and selling the raw eggs and things like that, or you can just get up with some of the local farms around your area and do some trading with them as well. So those are great avenues to bring in a little bit of income. You're not going to get rich with it. Now you'll see some of these videos how they're making, you know, $100,000 a year with quail eggs, and they have these really large, expansive, big coops, and the quail are just miserable. They have like maybe a half an inch between them. You want to keep your quail pen with a minimum of 6-inch square per bird with a foot head space. I go with the 1 foot per square foot for each bird, and that it limits you back a little bit, but your birds are going to be a little happier. They're going to be a lot healthier as well. And if you're looking at getting into flocks and things like that, I would highly recommend that you go ahead and buy, it's called Corid. It is a medicine for any type of poultry, any type of livestock. And that stuff really comes in handy. If you notice a bird that's kind of frizzled a lot, maybe they're acting a little sluggish, you can take and put a teaspoon of that to a gallon of water. Or you can take it, and if you have a little dropper, just give them one direct drop every couple days. And within just a few days, they're going to come right back around. If you're seeing a lot of really loose, dark brown, almost black looking stool, they have a type of a bacteria inside their gut, and it's going to eventually kill your bird. So I would highly recommend that you get Corid. I've not lost any bird to any kind of disease or anything like that, which has been great. As long as you keep your birds fed, warmed, and clean water, they're going to do fine. Absolutely no issues. Watch the bedding materials that you get. Do not buy the finely shredded pine shavings that they sell at some places. You want the larger flakes, because those chicks, they don't really know what they're eating, and they will come up and they will eat that stuff, and then it will get impacted in their crop. So just like a chicken has a crop, so does a quail. Now, you may be wondering, how often do you need to give those birds grit? Well, if you're using a commercial feed, okay, that is a grain style feed. It's got a lot of different nutrients and things. I buy game bird feed. I do not buy the pellets. I always buy the mesh, whatever you want to call it, crumbles. They have different names, different types of stuff out there. It's just shredded up. It's already ground up. It's great. It's perfect. They do not need grit with that at all. You do not have to waste your money getting grit. Now, if you live in an area like where I'm at, and we have a lot of sand down here in Florida, it saves you some money, because just like most birds, they want to have a sand bath available. And you can buy a cheap kitty litter pen at Walmart. I think I picked mine up for like $2.50. And I just go out and get some fresh sand. And I always mix my sand here with diatomaceous earth, just because you do have things that could cause like ringworm and different stuff like that. There could be some kind of, you know, bacteria or something inside that dirt, because it is outdoors and you don't know what's really been on that sand. But if you add diatomaceous earth, you can take and you can boil the sand, heat it up, things like that as well. Add hardwood ash, which is like if you're taking oak trees and you're burning them in your yard, do not add accelerants. You want to start that normally. And if you will do that, you're going to have something to mix in with that sand, and that's going to keep them from getting mites. It's going to keep them from getting ticks. It's going to help keep them clean as well. So those are just a few tips if you're looking at doing quail. With my quail now that I am actually back into breeding them, and I've got currently about 48, I guess, that are in the grow out box. Butchered some the other day, and I've got 40 layers, 9 roosters with those layers as well. And then currently I've got about 12 inside of a brood that are just starting out. They're a few days old, and my incubators are full again. And what I'm doing is I'm just stocking up meat supplies. So you can slow down, speed up, however you want to do. It's very easy to raise quail. It takes 8 weeks from hatch to get them to a butcher weight. If you want eggs, you're going to see a lot of videos, a lot of information that says that their quail were laying within 6 to 8 weeks. It is not uncommon, or unheard of, I should say, for a quail to lay that soon, but the entire flock is not going to start laying that early. Typically, you're looking at 11 to 12 weeks, sometimes around the 10-week mark. That has been my experience. That's with perfect weather where you're not getting a lot of cold, a lot of rain, and things like that as well. So there's a lot of stuff that can come into that. And if you want to keep those birds laying, You can push quail. They're going to live about 3 years. And if you want to let them live their lives out, they're only going to really lay for about a year and a half. And that's if you are not pushing your birds. Now, you can push those birds, which is going to keep them producing eggs. When I'm saying push them, you will provide light to them. You want to make sure they have at least 14 hours minimum light a day. So you can buy those little cheap Walmart lights for 88 cents that sit out in your yard and work off solar. And they come on when it's dark, and they just run the battery out and die, and then they charge up the next day, which is what I use. I had bought a lot of really expensive lights, and because they're out in the weather, they typically do not last long. But these little cheap lights at Walmart, they're going strong. I ended up putting 2 of those out on my quail pen, and they are doing great. So I'm averaging, on average, between 22 to 30 eggs a day. Now, sometimes I get more than that because I do have 40 layers. It's not very common for them to lay every single day. You're going to hear people say, oh, they lay every day. You will have birds that will lay every day, but your entire flock is not going to lay every day. I figure a day or a egg every couple of days. And if you figure that up to what you're going to need, you're going to end up with an oversupply of eggs anyway, depending on how many layers you're keeping. So for those that don't know, if you're keeping quail as a food source for, say, just laying eggs, because a lot of people do not want to butcher their animals, and I can understand that. You want to have 4 quail eggs to equal 1 chicken egg for serving size. Now, nutritionally, quail eggs do not have any bad cholesterol at all. The cholesterol they do contain is good cholesterol, and that's going to drive your cholesterol levels down. It's also going to change the way that your body actually processes sugars. So I have a dad, he's a diabetic. And since we've switched over to these fresh quail eggs, he's actually taking a lot less insulin now. A lot of times he can skip his evening shots because his sugars are running good. And that really is kind of the only step we've really changed. We've tried so many different diets that the doctors have suggested and tried to stick with those. And just switching out from a store-bought chicken egg over to quail eggs has really helped a lot. Growing our own food has helped a lot as well, because you're getting a lot of stuff that you maybe don't really realize when you're buying stuff at the store. You're getting a lot of pesticides. There's a lot of people that have a misconception that all organic food is non-GMO, and that is not the case. So what is GMO? That is genetically modified, or GME, depending on what part of the country or maybe which country you're in. Those are some of the things that they have, and what that is they genetically change the seed to create those, really big tomatoes or those really big watermelons and things like that. So you're not going to get a lot of those really big plants with a heritage seed. But you can get beefsteak tomatoes that are still really nice size, and they will be GME free, which means it is not genetically modified or engineered. And I would highly recommend, if you're going to plant a garden, to find heritage seeds that are GME free or GMO free. Now, going to the organic. Organic food in the store is going to be quite a bit pricier. And what people need to understand is, just because it has organic does not mean that they're truly selling you organic vegetables. They had a big study about that. And a lot of these things, they're just slapping stickers on, because there's really not a whole lot of federal regulation to deal with it. As far as they're concerned, it's food, and it gets pushed out. So if you grow your own food, if you want to keep that organic, so you don't want to go buy Miracle Grow. Miracle Grow has a lot of different type of chemicals and things like that in that as well. It works great if you want to get a large crop, but it's not going to be organic. So the easiest source that I have found for organic is using my quail droppings, and it really pushes fast. You want to make sure that you compost that in, and it takes, typically with a compost pile, to actually get that where it's not so hot, it can take about 4 months composting that stuff. Now, if you watch some of the other videos that I'm doing, I'm actually showing you how to make what they call compost tea, which is where you're diluting it down and you're allowing it to sit for 24 hours in water. So you would use a couple scoops with your shovel, depending the size of your shovel. You're averaging about a gallon of manure, if that. We'll call it a half gallon, because you don't want to burn your young plants. Start light. Add 5 gallons of water into that. Let it sit for 24 hours. You want to come out and periodically stir that throughout the day. You don't have to be out there all day stirring it, but 2 or 3 times throughout the day. And then before you apply it, you want to get everything stirred up, let it settle again. And when you see the frothy foam on top begin to dissipate, that is the nitrogen and different things like that that is releasing. When that starts to dissipate, you are ready to use that compost tea. If you pour it on with that heavy froth on top of your water, you are going to burn your plants. So if you watch some of the videos, I show you how to do it, show you how to apply it. Now you can put it in sprayers, however you want. I find it easier to either use like a milk jug or one of my water jugs with top cut out, and you just dip it out and pour it on your plants, or just pick the 5-gallon bucket up and pour it out that way is the easiest way. Just pour it directly in. And the way that I prefer to use that fertilizer, that compost tea, is I like to take and put it on before I water. So first thing in the morning as I'm coming out, I'm going to water it with that. Now, if it's calling for rain, I'll get up early and I'll put that out. And when it rains, it helps to just kind of further dilute it a little bit. Depending on your soil quality and things like that, you're going to want to make sure that you're getting the right mixes as well. If you have a very fertile soil, you don't want to be adding a gallon of quail manure to 5 gallons of water, because you're going to burn your plants. If you have poor soil like I have here in Florida, it has a high sand content. It is getting better. We've been building it up, turning things over, working compost in over the past year or so. But I know that a lot of those nutrients has a tendency to leach through the soil quick. So I don't mind making it just a little bit hotter, because it's not really going to stay up in the upper soil very long anyway. So just kind of depends on where you're at, how you want to do that. As far as the cost of quail, so currently right now, on average, I keep anywhere between 50 to 70 quail on hand at any given time. Now that's before big butchers, before your eggs are hatching and you're adding new to the flock. I figure about 70, sometimes a little less. But what that does as far as cost wise for me, so you need to check around. If you have feed stores, I would highly recommend that you check your feed store, because it's going to be a little bit cheaper than your big box stores. But if I cannot find game bird feed, remember that you do not want to feed quail chicken feed. It's not going to sustain them. They're not going to grow right. You're not going to have healthy eggs for hatching and things like that. You're not going to have the nutritional content in those eggs as well. And you're only looking at a couple dollars difference. I can tell you Tractor Supply is going to have Game Bird starter feed, which is for your chicks. You want to make sure that you use Game Bird starter. And they have a lot of different brands you can use. I have used Purina in the past, and it runs about $20 for 40 pounds. And that doesn't sound too bad, except just basically a mile away, I can actually buy Game Bird starter feed, which is made right here in Georgia. It is supposed to be all organic. It's natural. It's not got any chemical processes that are put on the plants and things like that. And I can get a 50-pound bag for $18. So I go through between a bag to a bag and a quarter. So you're looking at probably between 50 to 60 pounds of feed in a long month, which is a 30-day month or a 31-day month. So, and that's with 70 birds. That is overfeeding my flocks as well. That is not giving them just a little bit. My birds are fat. My birds have actual fat on them. Quail is not naturally a fat type of a bird, but when I butcher them out, I like to have a little bit of that fat there. And they are very well defined as far as the meat and things like that as well. So my birds tend to be a little heavier than some people's quail, and that's just because I do overfeed them a little bit. Now, they're not going to eat so much that they're going to bust the gut and die on you, but you do want to give them a little more than maybe they need. And you're going to know when you come out to feed them. If they're gathered up around the feeders and they're climbing on your hands as you reach into the cage to feed them, or however you decide you want to feed them, then maybe add an extra cup in there for your birds, just so they're not like biting you, because they will come up and they will bite you, they will claw on you. Now, it does not hurt. It's not like getting attacked by, say, a mad rooster or something like that. It's not even really to the degree, I don't know if you've ever had a lizard bite your finger, nothing like that. You just feel like a very light pinch. And the main thing with that that's so annoying is when they're doing that, you have a tendency to drop food. So then you're wasting feed. So it's better to give them that extra cup, just so they're calmer when you come out. But I hope that's answered some of the questions with quail. So as I got the quail going very well, they're nice to sit out, listen to, and things like that. But I can remember growing up, and we would go to family's house, and they had chickens, and I like to hear the chickens cluck. And I have an aunt that used to help with a big homestead. I think it's called Pioneer Settlement, and they did a lot of gardening. They did a lot of chickens and turkeys and different things like that as well. So I'd spoke with her to kind of get some ideas of what's going on with the birds. What I need to prepare for them as well, because it is a very relaxing experience to sit out and just watch your chickens. Maybe you have children and you don't really want to get pets because they may be allergic, or you don't want the added feed cost and things like that. So with chickens, depending on the breed, now when you're looking at chickens, you want to talk to the breeder or look on there and see what they have. So they have what they call dual purpose birds. That is for laying and for meat. Then they have what they call broilers, which is for meat only. They are not a proficient layer. They're not going to give you a lot of eggs. I use dual purpose here, and you can get anything from buff Orpingtons. You can get the black Astralorps. You can get Rhode Island Reds. Rhode Island Reds, from what I'm to the understanding, they're probably some of the best layers you can get. Then you can get into, say, your Brahma chickens if you want something that's going to lay. It doesn't lay as often. You're looking at an egg maybe every 3 days as opposed to every other day with that particular chicken, but you're getting a larger egg, and you're ending up with a finished bird if you decide you want to butcher your birds as well as they get older and you want to replace them layers. You're looking at, with a Brahma, you can get between 12 and 13 pounds with a nice size rooster, between 9 and 11 pounds with a nice size hen. So those are some things to keep in mind with your birds and stuff. Now, Brahmas are very big. They're not as big as the Jersey Giants, but they are a very large chicken. So you're going to need a little more room in your coop and your run for them. They are very timid. They're very, well, I say timid, I should say calm. They don't run from you. They're very friendly. They're very calm. If you're keeping those and you're in an area with a lot of predators, don't let the chicken size fool you. It will be eaten probably faster than, say, a Rhode Island Red if that predator gets in, just because they are large, bumbling, and do not move very fast because they are so heavy. So that's something to think about as well, guys. But my main purpose here was to get a stance where I'm kind of sitting where, I am retired. I enjoy working part-time jobs and things. I would work seasonal at this amusement park. And it was kind of nice to make a little extra income, but it was a very long way to drive. And it was a really lot of stress that I myself did not really care about taking back on, because with the amount of call-ins and things, I would have been better to have just went back into industrial maintenance, the hours that I was pulling. So I made a decision last year that I was going to bolster what I'm doing here around the house and go ahead and start what I call micro homesteading. Don't be fooled. Homesteading does not mean you need 100 acres. It does not mean you need 10 acres. It does not mean you need 5 acres. You can do it on a half an acre as long as your local laws and things like that allow for it. You can do a lot of work. So everything that you're seeing, I am actually keeping that within a 1 acre plot. So there's actually 2 acres out here, and that other acre, that's going to get sowed in with millet and different things that are going to feed the chickens and birds, so I can eventually eliminate having to buy outside feed at all, and everything is self-sufficient at that point. When it comes to incubating my hens and things like that I have a bantam hen that's out there. It's a Belgian Duclay. They do get broody on occasion, and because she is lighter, as far as smaller than my typical chickens, I've been reading that there's a lot of success at allowing that hen, that particular type of hen, to actually incubate and hatch quail eggs. So that's going to save me on having to incubate eggs. I can move them out when she goes broody and just let her raise them. And as they get older, then I can take them to the grow out pens. So those are things you want to look for in your hens as well. Do they go broody? There are a lot of chickens that are out there that do not go broody. Then there are those that go broody very easily. And then there are those that are kind of along more of the normal aspect of things. So definitely do your research, see what's going to work best for your family. But I can tell you, like growing up, children love chickens. They love to get out and watch them do their thing. They like to get out and play around with them. Chickens are very friendly animals. It can be a little intimidating, especially if you have like a large rooster. So that's something you need to look at, is what do you do with a large rooster around children? So you can look online and it shows different ways you can trim their spurs and things like that as well. I'm not going to be trimming the spurs on my rooster. And the reason for that is I do not have small children here. So I want to make sure that my rooster is defending the flock. So the way I'm going to do that is there's a few roosters in with the chicks now. They are now a little over 6 weeks old. And I'm just kind of looking at what the temperament of the rooster is. So I don't want one that's being aggressive with the flock. I don't want one that's charging me, but I want one that's going to defend that flock very well. They keep the chickens in line, to keep their hens in line, to keep them in a nice cluster, as far as they don't let them wander. And a good rooster will keep your flocks together. You're not going to have to worry about having a hen that's going who knows where, doing who knows what, because that rooster is going to make sure that everybody is in sight so he can keep an eye on them. And he's watching for predators and things like that. You want a good rooster that's going to call out when he detects predators so your hens have time to get into their coop. So those are some things to look at as well. And we're going to go over that in more depth of the video. But my hopes for this channel is I don't expect to ever be as far as like some of these farming channels. They have so much great information out there. They really do. And honestly, I like to watch them just because I love watching like the cattle and things like that. I have land up in Wyoming. It's off-grid property. It is free range, and there are cattle that are just moving through the area, and it's beautiful to watch that. It's amazing to watch the ranchers come out, and the rancher that comes out to the area where he grazes cattle out on my property, he comes out, and I'll just kind of sit back and watch him and his hands, and they work these cows, and they're out branding after calf season and stuff, and they're doing it old school. They're out on horseback. They are not trucking those cows to a facility. So it's just really kind of cool to watch that kind of stuff. And missing that, it's been nice to be able to watch some of these videos on YouTube. But my purpose is to encourage the people that are like me, that are just looking to maybe add a little bit of extra sustainability to their house, where maybe you're a little bit short on funds. Well, instead of having to worry about buying the basics, you're already providing the basics for your family. So how much do you spend on breakfast foods for your family? How many dozens of eggs do you go through? Snacks. How much do you spend on that? So that's something to look at. For $20, I'm looking at plenty of eggs for breakfast. I always end up having to pickle some, making egg sandwiches and things, which helps with lunches as well. You have boiled eggs in your lunchbox. If you're out working out and in your garden and things like that, you just need something that's going to give a quick boost of energy. Grab a couple boiled quail eggs, take the shell off and pop them in, and you're good to go. I mean, it's going to give you a lot of energy. You're getting a lot of vitamins and things like that as well. You're getting a higher nutritional value from those eggs than you are from the store-bought eggs. So when it comes to chicken eggs, I will be eating chicken eggs as well, but my chicken's eggs are going to be free-ranged. They do have a good source of feed that I'm feeding them. With my local feed store, I've talked to them and told them what my expectations is. I want a non-GMO and an organically raised food, which costs a little bit more, but not much. So you're looking at between $10 and $12 for 50 pounds for just any old chicken feed that'll work. You're looking at about $16 to $18 for 50 pounds, and you know what's in that bag. So that's something to think about. And then while they're out, they're eating their bugs and, doing what chickens do outside. That's a great source of information there. So we're going to add some clips in here and just kind of show you some of the stuff that's going on with our homestead here. So like I say, guys, I like to go out and just watch these chickens. They are finally out of the brood. And it's been a lot of joy for me to kind of go out and just see these guys kind of, and the gals, the hens and roosters. They're a little early to tell some of them now. But, excuse me. But it's just been kind of nice to actually get out and watch them. And I'm already starting a compost pile in the back, which is going to be for this backfield when I get into doing our millet and stuff like that. Like I say, that's just something to reduce cost on me in the future, because the reason for sustainability, I don't want to scare people. I don't want people to feel like I'm like fear mongering on this channel and things like that. But I do believe it's important to tell people what's going on. When you look around at society and you look around at the inflation that's happening, I've lived through 2 housing market crashes as well. Had built some really nice homes, went through all that mess, and it's just, it's a little disconcerting to see how we still continue with frivolous spending on stuff when we could actually be trying to get to a point where maybe we don't have to put out as much money on that stuff, and then you can still afford some of those nicer things because you're giving your family a healthy food source. You're giving them a sustainable food source. You're teaching your children how to raise their own food, which is going to help them. One thing history has proven is that all societies at some point are going to reach a point of collapse. Here in America, we about hit that point in the 20s. I have talked to a lot of people that were in the Great Depression that lived through it. And there's not as many of them around now as there used to be. But I can remember growing up, and the advice that a lot of the old timers would give me, and I'm talking grandparents and great uncles and things like that, they would tell you, you need to make sure that whatever you do, you have a sustainable backdrop, some kind of a backup plan. And the number one thing I was told is chickens, because sure, you probably don't want to eat eggs 24/7, but do you want to starve in a situation? So my grandmother, she actually grew up, and her family had farms. They did canning and all kinds of stuff. And when the Depression hit, sure, there was some things that, was a little bit different for them, but they didn't starve. And I can remember her and my granddad telling me stories about how after they had met, that my granddad was listening to some of her stories and how they always had to eat eggs and bacon, and they made their own grits as well. And how much she always enjoyed when they could go out and get a loaf of bread instead of having to eat biscuits. And I grew up country boy. I would rather fresh biscuits over bread any day. That's, buying a loaf of bread. But because that was part of her task, is making the biscuits and stuff. And let me tell you, nobody makes better biscuits than your grandmother. And I have learned that. I've had a lot of people try to say that their biscuits are the best. I've not tasted any better yet. Same with fried chicken. But back onto the story, guys. I think that people need to realize, like my granddad's family, they were more in the city, of those days, and they were looking to buy bologna, and they were happy if they could find a half a pound for a nickel. Think about that, a half a pound of bologna for a nickel. You can't even touch a slice of bologna for a nickel today. So, but he would hear these stories about what they had to eat on the farm. He's like, well, y'all were rich people compared to what we were doing, but it's because they worked what land they had. Now, I have a great uncle. He is still on that property, and he does gardens. He is getting older. I mean, he's got to be pushing, I bet he's getting close to 90 years old now, and he's still out planting gardens and things like that. So I'd went up a couple of years, and we'd go up and visit and help get some things out of the garden and stuff like that for him and all. And it was a lot of fun, just kind of hear some of the stories he would talk about. And I learned a lot of gardening techniques from him as well. So most people can go out and put a seed in the ground and grow something, but it is the rotation of the crops throughout the years that's going to really keep your farming going. So there's certain types of crops where it's going to deplete the soil, and then other types of crops, when you take and you till what's left in, it builds the soil back up. So those are some really good avenues to do, and we're going to discuss things like that on this channel as we go through. So for those who have been around for a while, I'm sure that you have seen the video of me out tilling the garden, and I don't always video that because no one wants to watch some guy out there running a tiller. I know I personally don't. Sorry guys, I've got the hiccups over here or something. But when you till your gardens in, you want to start early, maybe even when you're still getting frost. You don't want to try to till in a frozen ground, but the reason you do that is it brings those roots up and it allows the roots to be frosted on and it kills those weeds. And as you till that back under, you want to be throwing your mulch and things like that in as well. And it's just amending the soil, it's putting nutrients into soil. And I typically try to start about 2 or 3 months before my planting season. And it's just really building that soil up. You've got your compost in there and things like that. And it just really helps when planting season comes because it's not going to eliminate all the weeds, but it's going to make it a lot more manageable. And most people hate tilling gardens. And I can remember going to help friends talking about their garden, so hey, come over, help me till the garden, we'll give you some produce. It's like, okay, cool. And I'd come over and their idea of tilling the garden was just using a weed eater. Well, if they had actually went out with a hoe and had, managed their garden and started it properly and correct to begin with, that you wouldn't be out there with a weed eater. And those roots of the weeds would not be competing for the nutrients that your plants should be getting as well. So it's very important to keep a garden up. Once you start it, just go out. If you go out every couple of days, and it does not take long. Now, if you're using a acre to do a garden, yes, it's going to take a while. But if you're doing 5 rows, if you're doing something that is, maybe 20 foot by 20 foot, and you've got 5 rows in there, that gives you enough room to walk through. You're going to be able to plant enough food for a couple of people. You might not have a lot for canning, but this is about sustainable stuff. And you can, depending on the part of the region you're living in, get a spring crop in and get a fall crop in as well. I don't really typically go for a summer crop down here in Florida because it is so hot come August and September that it scorches just about anything that's out there. So I don't typically bother with a summer crop. There are a few shaded areas I might come out and throw another tomato plant or something like that in if I didn't get enough for canning and stuff as well. But you're going to learn what grows best in your area and really pile up on that because you may not eat it all now, but you can those goods for later. And that's going to help you in the winter months as well. So you can keep your quail laying year round. Your chickens, I would allow them to have that rest in the evenings. They're going to go through what they call molt, which is where they're going to start to lose their feathers. And then they're going to regrow those feathers. Wintertime's going to kick in. The evenings are getting longer. You're not getting as much sunlight. And they will stop laying eggs or slow down considerably. And that's okay to rest your birds like that. With quail, because they have such a quick turnaround, I just push them and keep them laying. And then as they start to slow down with laying, I will turn those into table food as well and just keep rotating quail in. And it doesn't cost any more, honestly, to continue to replenish your quail. And it's probably a little bit easier to do that as well, in my opinion. But I hope that this encourages you if you're thinking about doing some kind of a homestead, a garden, or anything, any kind of project. The best way to get that done is to just go do it. So you can do a lot of research. You can read a lot of books. You can watch a lot of videos. You can get on and ask people questions, and sometimes they will respond. I try to respond to every question I receive on here. Sometimes it can take me a day or two because I have to go in and search platforms. For some reason, some questions don't show up, and I have to actually manually pull that stuff up. So I will try to help answer anything that I can. So if you have questions with honeybees, if you have questions with quail, if you have questions with chickens, feel free to ask. If you have questions with basic gardening, let me know where you're at. If I don't have the information, I know a lot of farmers, and I can typically try to get some of the information that you're going to need or give you a source where you can get the information you need straight from a farmer in that area's mouth. So I would encourage you, if you're looking at society, maybe you're looking at your checkbook, maybe you're down to your last $10 and you're going, well, what do I need to do with this? I've got $10 left. Thankfully, you have enough food to make it. My suggestion to you is you can set that back or you can start a garden. $10 is going to get you maybe 3 different types of variety of plants with the seed prices that are there today. Now you can buy the cheaper seeds and you're going to have weeds mixed in with that stuff. I don't buy cheap seeds. If it's not an heirloom non-GMO or non-GME seed, I do not bother with it because you're going to end up with tomatoes this big around when what you're wanting is like this. So that would be my suggestion. But you are better off with a golf ball size tomato than nothing at all. But the problem with a non-heirloom seed, or maybe you're buying a tomato at Walmart, so I'll just take some of these seeds and grow them and create a garden. What you need to understand, most of that stuff that's at Walmart when you grow it, that is not a genetically modified seed, and it will not grow that particular type of tomato that you try to grow. It's going to grow an offshoot of something else. It'll be a tomato, but it's going to be really small. It might even be an orange color. It's not going to look very healthy. Your plant's going to look like it's withering and dying because it doesn't have all that extra stuff adding into that seed as well. So stick with heirloom if you can, guys. But I hope that has answered quite a few questions for everybody. I know I can get tongue-tied sometimes, but just check our files, guys. We have playlists. If you're looking at quail, I've got many hatches on there. I've got setting to incubators, what temperatures to do, what humidities to do, things like that. I mean, there's so much information. If you're starting with bees, I show you where the bees first come in. I show you how to build your hives. It's going to show you how to start your bees to keep them from absconding from a new hive. So those are some things you need to think about too. You can't just take bees and just throw them into a hive and expect them to stick around. There's ways to keep them in there. And we go over all that kind of information with everyone on here. And I want this channel to be a safe place where you can come get the information you need, pass it on to your friends. And I would like it to eventually become one of those one-stop sources where you can come in, you have information you would like, a certain project you're looking at, and you can go to our playlist and say, okay, here's what I want to look at: building a chicken coop, building a chicken run. What's the cheapest and most effective way to do that? So understand, when I do projects out here, say my runs or my coops and things like that, sure, it would be easy to go out and say, you know what, I'm gonna go buy this chicken coop, it looks amazing, and drop $3,000 or $4,000. How many people have $3,000 or $4,000 to drop on a chicken coop? Not many. And I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go with the most effective way that is going to cost the least but be secure. And I hope that my videos show that, how to do this on a budget. Right now with the honeybees, the chicken, and the quail projects that I've got going on, I'm just under $1,000 invested. And that started back in May of last year. So for $1,000, tax season coming up, and you don't have to do it all at once. Understand, you can do it. You can spread this out, a project every year, a project every couple years, and build your flocks or build your hives, and however you want to do it, guys. But for $1,000, you could get into it pretty quick, but I wouldn't recommend doing every project all at once. And the reason for that is you are going to overwhelm yourself. You want to start a new project and add it into your routine. So for the quail, it does not take me long to tend quail. I can come out, my first thing when I get up in the morning, just to show you my day, I get up, I put my bulldog on his harness, and we go out, and he does his walk. And on the way back in, I cut the water hose on, which is where I'm going to water my quail. And you can do automatic waters and things like that, but you're still going to need to have a water hose to fill up jugs or whatever. Personally, I like to use small waters because they're easier to clean than a large jug that you got to dismount and all that, because you're going to have to clean that thing. I clean mine at least once a week, more than that in summertime, twice a week. But it's very easy because they're small containers. And when I bring my dog back into the house, I will take it and I grab it's just a little can, like one of them old, it almost looks like one of those old metal or glass milk jugs is what it kind of looks like. But I grab that, it's got feed in it. It holds about 2 pounds of feed. And it's just something I picked up at a yard sale. And for like 20 cents, someone was selling it. So like, hey, that's pretty nice. I'll use that bucket. So it has a lid and everything on it. And I'll grab that and I go out and I add water to my flock. And then I go ahead and I feed my birds. And for each bay, because I keep the same amount of birds in each bay, they get 5 cups of food. And each side, really all they need is maybe 3.5. But like I say, I overfeed my birds because it gives me healthy eggs for hatching. It gives me a little bit higher weight at the end of butcher. So you can do it how you would like. And there's a lot of statistics on how much to feed a quail. My suggestion is put some food in when they eat in that sitting. If they eat it all up, then add a little bit more. If they eat and they leave a little bit of food, then you're probably good on that. Now, instead of feeding my quail twice, once in the morning and once in the evening, whatever they get to where they're eating their measurement and they have just a little bit left over, I'll double that in the morning, and then they have that evening feeding, and I don't have to go back out and deal with them again. I will check the water in the evenings to make sure that everything's topped off going into the night. They don't typically eat and drink much at night, so chickens will not eat or drink at all in their coop. They're going there and they're sleeping. So that's going to save you some time with chickens. It's going to save you a lot of time with your quail. It takes me 10 minutes roughly, and that's talking to the quail, petting them on their backs and things like that. I'll get them out, kind of look at them and stuff, and try to sex them if they haven't been sexed yet and things. And I have videos on that, how to tell what is male and what is female. So definitely look at our quail playlist on that. And there's just so much information that's out there, guys, and I have really tried to cover it all. And we get a lot of questions like, well, maybe you should do a video on this. And a lot of times those videos have been covered. So if you want to get as much information as you can, start from the hatch day and watch all the way through brood. There's all kinds of videos. There's shorts if you don't like long videos. If you're more just want to watch it rather than hear it, it's going to have in there where it's just showing what I'm doing and not talking. But if you need more of a dialogue, there are videos where I'm telling you what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So it's just information to help people out. And a lot of the information I've got is from people who breed quail. It is from reading a lot of books. Same with the bees, reading a lot of books. They had a class down here where you could go out to this settlement, and they go through, and for $20 they go through and they teach you the basics of beekeeping. And then they start to teach you what to look for different types of disease in your hives and how to prevent those things in your hives as well. So for the $20, it was worth it, and it was a lot of fun. Now a lot of times you have to provide your own bee suits and stuff like that. So, you need to check and see what they require. I ended up just buying a yellow jacket rated bee suit. I didn't bother with a honeybee suit. I just got something that's ready for yellow jackets, and I've not had any issues at all with it. I mean, it's worked out great for me. It is a little heavier than some of the bee suits that are out there. So in the summertime, it can be kind of miserable in that thing. So maybe you want to look at getting something that is rated more for a honeybee, but because I am allergic to bees, I am not going to take a risk. So that's basically the information I've got for everybody today. I hope you're enjoying the videos, everyone. Maybe you're trying to convince your wife, or wives are trying to convince your husband, your domestic partners. It doesn't matter. I don't care what your home life situation is. I hope everybody is happy in whatever their life is. But if you're on the fence, or maybe your partner is on the fence about it, guys, think about sustainability. Maybe you have children. Maybe you're planning on having children and things like that. Look around at the world around us. Look around at the prices. Sustainability is not just providing food on your table. Sustainability is, are you going to be able to sustain the lifestyle that you live? I went from making really good money in the industrial maintenance field, and I've tried a lot of different trades and stuff that pays about the best. I do not live the lifestyle that I lived 20 years ago. And the reason for that is it was not a sustainable lifestyle. When the last housing market crash hit, and we're talking around, it was around 08, 09, I had decided then and there, I am not going to be building another $500,000 home. I am done with it. I'd already built two, and I was done with that life. So sold everything and just kind of reset where I'm at. And I've kind of gotten back to what I call my roots, if you want to call it that. I grew up in North Carolina. We had gardens, we had meat rabbits and things like that. We had dogs that would go out, bird dogs. You go out bird hunting. We did a lot of squirrel hunting. We did a lot of deer hunting, and just different types of avenues to provide food on the family. I do not advocate poaching. If someone gets on here and they're talking about the deer they shot and left laying, I'm going to block you off my channel real quick. I do not like poachers at all. Now, if it is somebody they cannot afford a tag and they've went out and they've taken deer and they've processed that entire deer for their family, hey, I don't care. I think that's what they're there for. I wouldn't go around advertising that, because someone's going to report you in and you're going to get fined. But if you're just out shooting animals for sport and you're killing things that you are not eating, I have no respect for people like that at all. And true hunters do not like people that do that stuff. We do not see humor in taking an animal's life to provide food for our life. There is a level of respect that goes into that. And I hope people can understand that. When I'm butchering birds and things like that, I'm not out there making joke of it. I'm not making light of it. I do not videotape that process. And the reason why is because that is a life. And there are some weird people out there. Sure, those videos would probably get a lot of views, but I'm not going to put that out there where some sicko can watch some animal pass away. I'm just not going to. Now, I will show you how to cook it. I will explain it to you in detail if you need it. And that's in videos, how to dispatch quail and things like that. But I do not show it. And I will never show that on this channel. If that's something you're wanting to see on this channel, you need to go find another channel, guys. Because I'm not going to put stuff like that out here. I have nothing wrong with providing food for your family. But we don't take that lightly. You know, that is still a life that is taken to provide life for others. And I think people need to understand that even when going to the grocery store and things like that, that, you know, that meat that you're buying, that was a life there, you know. And I try to look at the quality that was given to that animal. Now, if they're raising something and it's raised in horrible conditions, I'm not even going to buy it because I do not want to support that type of a slaughter industry. I have nothing wrong with cattle and things. They have free raised cattle, and there's a lot of really good suppliers out there. But people that are abusing animals, or maybe they got, you know, whatever the situation is, sickly animals and stuff like that, they're just putting their stuff on the market. I try to stay away from that kind of stuff, and I actually find it a little more enjoyable to raise my own food, to grow my own food. And back onto that, sustainability, the things that you don't use in your garden, the stalks and the leaves and stuff like that, you can feed that to your chickens. Do not give them tomato plants. It is in the nightshade family and it will kill your chickens. But your cucumber vines and things like that, turn your chickens loose in there, let them eat it. If you want to put a chicken tracker, which is just a really small, you know, low profile, movable cage with your chickens in there and set them over and they can eat and they'll poo and all that stuff and just keep moving that around in your garden until they've eaten everything up, they're going to be extremely happy. Your garden's already going to have a good fertilizer coming into it as well. So you've just really saved yourself some hassle in feed. You've saved your time, saved you some time in having to fertilize your garden as well. So those are some really great aspects of living a more of a homesteading type life. But if you have questions, guys, please feel free to chime in here. If you've not hit that subscribe button, guys, please hit that. You know, so I want people to understand something. So there's other channels that say, you know, come out and support this channel. And I love it when they come out and say, hey, come support this channel. What I want people to understand is I do not need or want your support as far as you donating money to me, or I'm not selling you anything on here. Occasionally I will post a link if I think something is a great deal. And as an Amazon affiliate, I will get a certain commission back on that. I've never gotten any money off of it yet, but it's signed up if someone happens to buy something through that link, and it's not going to cost you any more. But everything I've done, I've already done a lot of times the price checks on these things. And short of going to, say, a Sam's Club or, you know, one of these real big stores where you have to buy the membership and things like that, I'm going to show you where to get it online, and they're going to deliver it directly to your door. And it's going to be cheaper than most of what you're going to find in town, or a better quality. If I get something that I've purchased or is sent to me and it's really poor quality and not worth it, I'm going to tell you, stay away from that product. That's how I am. So, but what really helps to support this channel is just hitting that subscribe button. You know, if you want to like and comment, that even helps even more, guys. But with YouTube, the only way these videos get out to other people is when they're shared, when we're getting subscribers, when we're getting those thumbs up on videos, or when we're getting comments. And if you just want to comment a thumbs up, that's great, because it catches in their system and it says, okay, this must be good content, because there's so many videos being uploaded, they don't know what's going out. But they look and say, okay, well, this seems like it's well liked, it's well received, so let's show this video around a little bit. And that just gets the news out to everybody, you know. And that to me is what we need to be pushing. It would be very easy to have a popular YouTube channel, because I live not too far from the beach. I could go out and I could take videos of people out on the beach in their swimwear, and there's always someone who wants to get their videos taken and stuff to go on social media, and that stuff hits like wildfire. I am not that type of person. I want good content to go out. So I hope that's what you've been getting, and that's the way that you see this content. So everyone have a great week. We have a weekend coming up here in a few days. I've kind of got a few ideas of some stuff we're going to do over the weekend. I'm going to revamp a few of the videos for everybody that's kind of showing a little bit better quality in film, I hope, is what we're looking for. So we'll talk to everybody later.